Hello and welcome everyone to AUM Finance Podcast. This podcast discusses the first principles of investing and is for informational purpose only. We intend to add to the body of knowledge. Please consult your financial advisor before taking any investing decision.
Hi everyone, this is the follow-on episode on the power of compounding, and just like me, I'm sure that you would have enjoyed the very interesting compounding examples that Nirav discussed in the previous episode. Let's see what more we can learn about compounding from him today.
If you had given Warren Buffett $1 when he started his practice 65 years back at the rate of 20% compounding per annum, okay, 20, that $1 would have grown to $1,40,000 today. If you had given him $1,000, it would have grown to $14 lakh today. If you have given him $10,000, it would have grown to 140 crore or 1.4 billion US dollars. $10,000 given to Warren Buffett 65 years back would have grown to 1.4 billion US dollars. You see, there's a story.
Amazing.
So Warren Buffett, he was probably 18, 20, and even today he looks much younger than what he is. So imagine how he would have looked when he was 18, 21.
Yeah.
So this 21-year-old Warren Buffett is about to start his practice of managing your money in stocks, and he approaches the CEO of Coca-Cola. That time Coca-Cola was Fortune 50 or Fortune 25 company. Okay, and CEO of Coca-Cola means it is a very big deal. Okay, why I am giving you this background is, see, if I approach somebody who is already a multi-millionaire or billionaire and I am a newbie, sit in the seat of that guy who is already very successful. See how fate turns, okay? So the CEO of Coca-Cola says to Warren Buffett, look, Warren, it's so nice of you. I know your father, grandfather. You are a good chap. But sorry, some very big investment banking firm is already managing my money. I don't know you. Maybe 10 years later you approach me. So years went by, Warren Buffett started his practice. 10 years later this guy retired. He was a rich man, he retired a rich man. And a couple of decades later when they met, the CEO of Coca-Cola said, I have made the biggest investment blunder in my life of not giving Warren Buffett my retirement money. I am way poorer than what I could have been. So sometimes you tend to ignore the budding talent because you are in a seat where you have already arrived in life. And as I keep coming, if you are prosperous, Chaitanya, and if I approach you and I say I'll compound your wealth till 11, 12, 15%, 11%, okay, I may compound your wealth at 11%. It will not attract you. You have here in your mind that you are very prosperous. ये और बात है कि you are very prosperous and then you make some investment blunders, or you diversify into another business and that business didn't do well as your current business. People who are prosperous, who are doing well. Achha, by the way, let me ask you, when in your life do you make an investing or financial blunder? Two options. You make a financial blunder, you make a very bad decision. One, when you are struggling, or two, when you are prosperous.
I can't say that because...
No, it's very easy. When you are struggling, you never make a mistake.
No, I don't.
You're
think
very
so.
careful. You don't have that money also.
No,
and
I may not have that money, but because I'm desperate at that time, I might get into the trap of getting into some quick make money scheme.
True.
Because I am desperate.
So, okay, good. So, in US and in India, that's a good point, Wood. That's why you need a dialogue. So, both in US and India, who are the biggest buyers of lottery tickets?
Poor people.
Poor people. Or lower middle class.
Yeah.
Have you ever bought a lottery?
No.
I have also never bought a lottery. Don't we want to become rich?
We do.
Why don't we buy a lottery?
Because I read in one book, and that has completely taken that question away, that the chance of winning a lottery is less than lightning striking you.
Yeah.
So coincidentally there was lightning.
And I'll tell you why I don't buy a lottery. There's no harm me buying some lottery once in a while, right? That I can afford that. People who afford do not buy lottery. People who cannot afford buy lotteries, and there are people who are obsessed with buying lotteries. So I always differentiate between these two things, and I teach it to everybody, to all the teenagers also. Is it a game of skill or is it a game of luck? If it is a game of luck, I'll not buy a single penny on it. If it is a game of skill, now tell me, what is lottery? Is it a game of luck or game of skill?
Obviously luck.
Is there any skill in buying a lottery?
No.
Okay, if you are telling yourself that, then
you're fooling yourself.
You're fooling yourself. So lottery is a game of luck.
Totally.
Investing is a game of skill. So I'll always bet my last dollar on the game of skill rather than on a game of luck. That's why I don't buy a lottery.
So Nirav, wonderful discussion. Now there are two questions in my mind. From school time we know this about compound interest, etc. We've solved so many equations and so many people have talked about it, and compound interest is so important. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And especially somebody who gets trained in finance knows it even better.
Yeah.
And has heard it so many more times. But still, some people make the mistake of not doing it in a disciplined way. And some people who may not be in the finance line do the correct thing of doing it. They are disciplined. So my question to you is, what is that factor which helps people to stick with the discipline?
See, Chaitanya.
And this the second part of the question is that what are the mistakes or the lures which take people away from the discipline track?
So I'll not say some people, I'll say most people.
Most people. Yeah.
Before we had that discussion, okay, we compounded wealth for you, we've been there a long time, you understand, you are a student of finance. But did compound interest strike to you the way it is struck today?
No, definitely not.
Right?
Today it is, very...
So our school teacher, and with due respect to them, taught us the formula of compound interest in a very academic way. See, I'll take you to nature today. We talk about rabbits. I gave you a quote, right? Compound interest is the most powerful force working in the universe. Without compound interest, a forest cannot become a forest without compound interest. Have you ever wondered? See, there's a quote on nature also. Nature does not hurry. Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished.
Amazing.
Have you ever seen how a sapling or a seed grows into a tree? All the tree that we see today, tomorrow when you go for a walk or go for a jog, just look at all the trees around, and all of those trees were at one point of time a sapling or a seedling.
Yeah.
Isn't that the most powerful example of compound interest that nature shows you? But since none of us has seen that sapling or seed growing into a tree in front of our eyes, okay, so we do not realize compound interest. A tree is a compound interest. Tree is A, the sapling was P. A is equal to P into 1 plus R upon 100 raised to the power of N. Whatever trees we are seeing, the N is either 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years old. There's a quote. I'm sitting under the shade of a tree because somebody planted a sapling someday. So the person who planted a sapling understood the concept of compound interest. I believe farmers understand the concept of compound interest more than anyone else without realizing that it is compound interest. And the same farmer then goes to the local money lender and becomes a
slave to
compound interest rather than becoming a user of compound interest. So as we discussed in the last podcast, a mango tree, ever wonder how a sapling sprouts into a tree? Okay. Now we've all heard the example of a Chinese bamboo tree.
Yeah.
So there was this hermit who planted a fern seedling and a Chinese bamboo seedling together. Couple of years later, the fern was as big as the Chinese bamboo seedling. The Chinese bamboo plant was not growing. Till 4 years, they were of the same height. Normally, a bamboo plant is assumed to be much bigger than a fern. And in the 5th year, within a matter of 2 months, the Chinese bamboo grew to 90 feet tall. The fern was this much, the Chinese bamboo was this much. And in the fifth year, it grew to 90 feet. Then in the sixth year, it grew much more than that. So what was happening? Somebody asked the hermit, what happened? 4 years to kuch nahi hua. What happened in the fifth year? And what was happening all along the 4 years? So if you're a student of biology, actually the bamboo tree was expected, the bamboo tree was going to grow at 90 feet. You know, when you construct, let me take you to architecture first. Okay, so we are student of liberal arts. The taller the building, the more the architect, deeper is the foundation. We all know that?
Yeah.
Right? If you want to, so imagine Burj Khalifa. Do you know how deep they would have gone down?
Correct.
In order to give it that kind of strength. This is basic physics. Otherwise, the building will
Naturally.
Why is the leaning tower of Pisa leaning? Maybe the architect at that time compromised on how deep he can go further.
Correct.
Probably you should have gone another 40-50 feet down. So the leaning tower of Pisa would not have leaned. Okay. So the bamboo tree in the first 4 years, the roots were going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper in such a way it knew in the fifth year it has to grow suddenly. If something has to go suddenly, so a foundation was being built by the bamboo tree. That's what we do when we invest. So when my clients come to me and say, sir, it's been 18 months, there's no return, I say we're building a foundation. I tell my clients, first 18-24 months, do not expect any return. If it comes, well and good. And it is very surprising. Let's say you are an SIP investor with me. Okay, you gave me money 18 months back, 18 months later, and you started an SIP for me with, let's say, 15 years. First 18 months you made money. You become happy. My clients become happy if I give them return in the first 18 months. And you know what? I find it very strange. See, you're going to invest for the next 15 years. You are interested in what will happen to your portfolio in the 15th year or in the 10th year. If in the first 18 months of you becoming my client, we made money for you, that means the SIPs which are going to come after that, you are going to buy at higher rate. So if I start an SIP today, if you start an SIP today morning, you should pray to God, I'm investing for 10 years, please keep the market down. Please keep the market down till the 9th year, and in the 10th year like a bamboo tree grow up. That will be the biggest delta you can create. So people, you asked me to people, why don't people understand compound interest? People don't take time to study compound interest. All my clients' investment portfolio I have built like a bamboo tree. First 3-4 years we give returns. I mean, it's not in my hand to give or not to give return, but I am more interested in saving the value of the money you have given me in managing the risk than the return. I'm more interested in risk than the return. If I take care of the risk, if I take care of the downside, what did Warren Buffett say?
Yeah, rule number 1, rule number 2.
Rule number 1, don't lose money. Rule number 2, don't. So you come to me and the other fellow goes to somebody else. He gives him very high return in the first year, second year the market crashes. You are down. I didn't give you much return in the first year, but over 2 years you got average return and I protected your wealth. Who's the winner after 2 years? Mr. Y portfolio went down by 20, Mr. X the portfolio went up by 8. So the guy who's down 20 will require how much percentage to go back to 100? It's way more than 20. So nature has given us example after example after example of the power of compounding. We've never observed them. We've never realized, and that is what happens in the world of money. May it be Warren Buffett, may it be Peter Lynch, who was the most successful mutual fund manager ever, who compounded at some 20 plus 24% compounding return. They all were huge fans of the power of compounding. And if these wise people have understood what power of compounding means, okay, and if they keep on talking about it, every AGM that I have attended of Warren Buffett, there has always been one reference to the power of compounding, and he is a living, breathing example of power of compounding. That's why I say there won't be another Warren Buffett. How many people will not tire down and keep managing money for 65 years and the guy is still running strong? Yeah. Who knows, there might be another 10-15 years left. Godspeed to my guru Warren Buffett. And if he is saying something, if Charlie Munger is saying something, if Peter Lynch is saying something, there is some merit. Only problem is you have to let go of short-termism. power of compounding works only if you give it adequate N. Minimum 5, maximum 50, 60 years.
This reminds me of a saying I've heard that the financial maturity of a person,
Yeah.
you can judge that by the time horizon they speak about.
True, very true. I like it.
Like if a person is talking about month, he's at a certain maturity level.
Yes, and I don't
Year,
take
decade.
clients who talk in months.
And then these guys are talking about decades
Yes.
or centuries.
Yes. So fine, don't talk in terms of decades, but please have a horizon where you look at another 5 to minimum 5 years, another 5, 7, 10, 15, 20 years.
वही आपके साथ जुड़ने के दौरान और जुड़ने के पहले भी जो मेरे में माइंड शिफ्ट हुआ वो ये था दैट वन सेंटेंस व्हिच मेड मी connect with you and stay with you is that you spoke about generations.
Yeah.
You not only said ki Chaitanya with you, but we are going to be connected
with your children.
With the children, so generations. So that's where I said ki हाँ ये long term solution है.
I want to manage wealth for your next generation. I am no more interested in you.
Yeah. Don't say that.
I am interested in you, but I am equally and more interested in the next generation.
Of course.
See, I always say the wealth, history has shown the wealth doesn't get passed on to the third generation. Now I am revising it and I am saying कि एक generation बाद भी wealth pass on नहीं होता है, pass on हुआ तो टिकता नहीं है. A billionaire, millionaire giving wealth to the next generation is only 10% of the job. That billionaire, millionaire has not taught the basics of managing money, the basics to the next generation. Compound interest का concept ही नहीं पता. Even if I, in a lecture to the next generation, Gen Z, if I gave a lecture on compound interest, they said, yeah, fine. But it will not register in your mind.
That's the thing, na? They understand theory.
Yeah.
But practically implementation के लिए they need to see it working in their lives. One thing. They need to also see कि the other things are just some fictitious things which are alluring right now, which will not fructify into the results that they want.
Yes. And so see, when I tell them 15 years later I'll help you buy a Merc, they say we want a Merc 4 years later. And I say fine, you go for a Merc 4 or 5 years later. So buying a Merc. So when I give a lecture to the Gen Z, okay, and I say 50-year plan, they start sleeping. They stop paying attention. We want a Merc in the next 5 years. Nothing wrong with that. You can have a Merc in the next 5 years. But then, we tend to, in today's world, we tend to upgrade our automobile every 5, 7, 8 years. We are not like they are not like our generation or our parents' generation where you buy a car and keep it for life. Now, my concern is if we are going to, tell me one thing. What is the typical tenure of a car loan, Chaitanya?
Typical tenure, I guess 15 years?
No, a bank gives you a car loan for 5 years and 7 years.
Okay.
But that is wrong. The moment you buy a car with a car loan today, 5 year or 7 year, whatever, 7 years later you're going to upgrade and you're going to upgrade to a bigger car. Anybody goes to a smaller car? Does anybody upgrade to a smaller car? No, you go for a bigger car. If it is a second car, it's a different thing. So if you are driving a 15 lakh car today, the next car would definitely not be worth 15 lakh. It would be 20, 25, 30. The next car would not be 30 lakh. It would be 40, 50. So people take a car loan. 5, 7 years later, when they want to upgrade to a bigger car, they again take a car loan. So I say a car loan is actually for 25, 30 years. So for 25, 30 years, what is working against you?
Yeah. Easy.
What is working against you?
Easy to see.
Compound interest. So the bank is compounding money on your car loan. Second, every 5, 7 years you're putting money in a depreciating asset. See, I'm never ever saying don't go for luxuries. Buy a Rolex for Christ's sake. But I'll buy a Rolex when my investment portfolio can buy me 10 Rolex. Then I'll buy the first Rolex. I'm not a fan of Rolex. I'm an Apple fan. Okay. But even if I do buy a Rolex, I should have money worth 10, 15 Rolexes in my pocket, then I'll buy a Rolex. What people do, they take a loan and go for it. You want a 25, 30 lakh car today, what percentage, the car should be what percentage of your annual income? Did you do the math? We'll talk about these matrices in some other podcast, right? One metric, one thumb rule I gave you. is my investment portfolio, my mutual fund portfolio should be 7 to 10 times the vehicles parked in my garage. That will ensure that you never become poor. When you give money to your next generation, first inculcate the habit of SIPs in them. Inculcate the habit of investing, not only saving. So these people, they get very big income, right? So like one of my client told me that my son recently got his first salary. Okay, his first salary is 5 times bigger than my last salary, his father's last salary. 6 months later, the son was in IT and there was a bad phase and he was out of job. The son was asking money from the father. Father said, what did he do? I said, show me his loans and show me his investments. So he had nothing to show for investing. And every gadget in his house and every vehicle that he had were bought on loan.
Oh my God.
So let me give you a metric. If you are earning 1 lakh a month, for example, and if you have a 40,000 SIP, EMI, sorry. If you are earning 1 lakh a month and you have an EMI of, let's say, 40,000, and if you work 10 hours in a day, 4 hours you are working for the bank, not for you and or your family. Did you get it? Did it hit you? This is my own, I'll again talk about it. If you are earning 1 lakh a month, if you have a 40,000 SIP, and if you are working 10 hours in a day, 40 hours you are working only for the bank, you are a slave to the bank. Yes, home we cannot purchase without a loan, right? And I have a home loan, I could pay that home loan anytime, but my compounding is way 2x of my home loan interest rate, so I do not pay off my home loan. But only if you can have that ability, then you do that, otherwise pay off your home loan or your car loan. Okay? So compounding should be your friend and not your enemy. We are sitting on opposite side of the table. If you are Mr. Compounding, I would want you to sit next to me, not opposite to me. Remember that.
Make it the ally.
Right. And we'll close this with, let me give you an example of Indian Sensex. So S&P BSE Sensex, as we are talking, is touching around 65,000 today, right? 66,000. You know in which year the Sensex was born?
95?
So it was born in the year 1979.
Oh, okay.
And they attributed a value of 100 to Sensex.
Okay.
Now it's been 45 years. So 1979, the BSE Sensex, S&P BSE Sensex, it was a Sensex earlier, now it is
S&P
BSE Sensex was 100. 45 years later, it is 66,000 as we are talking today. When some people see the podcast, it would have gone much more, okay, or less. So Sensex 100 becoming 66,000 in 45 years, the compound rate, Chaitanya, is 15.5%.
Wow.
The Sensex, Indian Sensex, has compounded at 15.5 years for 45 years. If you had put in 10 lakh when the Sensex was born, in the year 1979, it would have grown, to hold your breath, 65.5 crores today. 10 lakh growing to 65.5 crores. And 90% of operators in the stock market lose money. Because you are looking at the news today, you are reacting to the news. See, many times if you call me and you ask me market kahan hai, and I will tell you I don't know. Does it mean I am not aware of what is happening in the market? No. How does day-to-day movement in the stock prices matter to me? And maybe we'll devote an episode to Mr. Market sometime.
Yeah, this is being price obsessed.
We should not be price obsessed. I don't know where the market is today.
Because it is so fascinating right now that Nifty is not touching 20,000.
Yes.
That is an obsession, whereas it is totally irrelevant.
Yes.
How does it matter if it touches or not?
How does it matter? And one of the biggest myth is all-time high. We talked about it, right?
All-time high.
So Chaitanya, you are at all-time high in terms of age today. I am at all-time high. Yesterday we were one day younger. Okay. Indian GDP is at all-time high. Does it mean Indian GDP, Indian economy, you and I are not going to grow? So the fact that you want to book your profit just because the market is all-time high is the stupidest concept ever. Things which are a tree which is growing, a plant which is going into a tree is at an all-time high every day. Does it mean it is the end of the life for the tree? No. So all-time high is only a statistical concept and it misguides you most of the time. Forget talking. What do pink papers publish? Sensex at all-time high, Nifty at all-time high. It is a statistical measure, know it and ignore it. What was Sensex on 14th January 2020? What is 14 January 2020? Sensex was some 42 odd thousand. What was it on 23rd March 2020? It was 28,000. What happened between the two dates? COVID came to India and people realized that COVID is here to stay. What happened now? 2-3 years later, we are at all-time high, right? So if you had even bought at 42, remain invested. I mean, God will be with you. The God power would be with you. If you had bought at 28, you would have made a lot of money. If you had not done anything, and we didn't do anything with your portfolio, with my portfolio, 42 went to 28.
Came back.
From 28, when it went up, it never stopped at 42. It went all the way to, in October 20, when it all the way went to 62, 63,000. And we are at 66 today. And people are already predicting 1 lakh. Now, as I said, this podcast is not ephemeral. It is not temporary. It is a sustainable podcast. So we'll stop talking about figures. But my aim in this podcast was that first understand the power of compounding. If you understand the power of compounding, you've understood in investing. Now, what compounds? As we discussed in the last podcast, anything that compounds is an investment. Anything that doesn't compound is a saving.
Yes,
okay?
true.
So your saving bank account doesn't compound. The money under the mattress doesn't compound. The coffee can money does not compound. And one of the most powerful compounding force is equities. And US equity and Indian equity have compounded. We have had a very good history. And let me tell you, which is the best performing stock market in the world over a very long period, last 4-5 decades. It's India and US. If you're not betting on India using the equity route, using the equity mutual fund route, you're not compounding your wealth. Hence, a very good portion of your money should be in Indian equities via professional managers, preferably via the mutual fund route. And let me give a caveat here. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risk. Please read the offer document carefully before investing. And let me give my version. All investments are subject to not only market risk, but all forms of risk. You should read before investing, while you're invested, after investing, and you should read much more than what is required of you. Thank you. Thank you, Chaitanya.
Awesome.
Did we understand compounding today?
Yeah.
Did I compound your knowledge today?
Definitely.
Okay, great. So be a learning machine. Okay, help me become a learning machine and let us keep compounding.
The podcast was very interesting.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the AUM Finance podcast. Remember that all investments are subject to market and other risks, and one should read offer docs and other documents carefully before investing.